Every story has a backstory. Remember the famous call to God, from God to Abraham, Lech lecha me'artzecha, go forth from your land. Well, the Midrash imagines how it is that God and Abraham actually meet. And here's how the story goes. A man was traveling from place to place when he saw a palace in flames. Bira achat doleket. He wondered, is it possible that this palace has no one who looks after it? The owner of the building looked at him and said, I am the owner of the palace. Similarly, since Abraham, our father, wondered, could it be there is no one to care for this world? The Blessed Holy One looked out at him and said, I am the master of the world. Abraham encounters a world consumed by fire. He looks at it bewildered and overcome by the horror of it all. He asks, is this what the world is really like? Does no one care? Is anyone actually in charge? Comes God with an answer, it is me. One commentator suggests that God might even be trapped in the fire. Abraham's question is both a cry of doubt and a cry of protest. It cannot be that this is the way of the world, that chaos and evil will reign and we will watch it burn. The world is certainly not meant to be this way. Rabbi Shai Held writes, the insistence that the world is not yet the world as it must be is itself a manifestation of faith. When God peers at Avram announces that I am the owner of this world, then God is only making explicit what is already implicit in Abraham's anguished cry. According to some commentaries, this is the exact moment that defines why Abraham was called by God. This is the backstory about why Abraham was called by God. Why Abraham? Because he is a human being disturbed by the troubled world and asks hard questions. Why Abraham? Because he is heavy with doubt, yet full of faith and belief that things should be otherwise. Why Abraham? Because he is a faithful human being searching for a pathway forward. On this most holy and awesome night of the year, gathered with Jews all over the world, we are heartbroken from the darkness and evil that is ignited in our burning house, the one that we have been living in for the past year. Our humanity and God's image have been trapped in the fire. And we ask the question from the piyut that we will sing shortly, Lecha Eli, Uma ani, Uma chayai, Uma kochi ve'atzmati. And what am I? And what is my life? And what is my strength and my might? Who am I called to be? This is our moment. The world in our predicament is before us, and we, like Abraham, cannot turn away. Hannah Senesh also received such a call. Born in Budapest in 1921 amidst increasing anti-Semitism in Hungary, she became a Zionist in her teens and felt called to emigrate to Palestine in 1939, leaving her mother and brother behind. In 1943, she enlisted in the Women's Auxiliary Air Force. And in 1944, as part of a special operation, she was parachuted into Yugoslavia behind enemy lines. Ultimately, she was arrested, tortured, and executed. But in October of 1940, amidst the fires burning in Europe, Senesh wrote her first poem in Hebrew. It's on page 4 in your booklets. And actually, for anyone, has anyone visited the new National Library in Israel? If you've been, I was there this summer. They actually have the original paper that this poem was written on. Page 4. במדורות מלחמה בדלקה בשרפה, בין ימים סוערים של הדם, הנני מעבירה פנסי הקטן, לחפש בן אדם. שלהבות השרפה מדיחות פנסי, אור האש מסנוור את עיניי, איך אביט, איך אראה, איך אדע, איך אכיר, כשהוא יעמוד לפניי. תן סימן אלוהים, תן סימן על מצחו, כי באש בדלקה ובדם, כן אכיר את הזיק הטהור הנצחי, את אשר חיפשתיו בן אדם. In the fires of war, in the flames, in the fire, among stormy days of blood, I pass my small lamp to search for a human being. The flames of fire are extinguishing my lamp. The light of the fire is dazzling my eyes. How will I look? How will I see? How will I know? How will I be aware when he stands before me? Give me a sign, God, give me a sign on his forehead, that in the fire and the flames and the blood, I will know the pure, eternal spark, that which I searched for, a human being. In the midst of the fires of war, Hannah Senesh goes on a search. She is not willing to succumb to the darkness. She asks for God's help as she looks for humanity in the storm. As Pirkei Avot teaches, "Uvemakom she'ein anashim hishtadel li'ot ish," in a place where there is no humanity, strive to be human. She wants to know that the eternal spark that God planted in human beings has not disappeared or been extinguished, though she can barely keep her lamp lit, for all the flames around her are burning. The poem, I think, reveals a striking faithfulness, the desire to search and find, even to see just one sign, something that will tell her she is on the right path, that humanity still exists. It is this longing, this faith, that I fear we are losing as we watch our own house burn. In the face of October 7th and the war that has followed, I fear we have become cynics and skeptics. We are despairing. We have lost hope. We have hardened our hearts, and there is a sense that our humanity is slowly being compromised. And we don't seem to care. This Yom Kippur, we must look inside ourselves for our divine spark and return to what it means to be human. That is our tshuva. to affirm the existence of humanity even in the darkest of times. Yom Kippur is the time without pretension to find our essence, the essence of our humanity, which is most godlike, to strip ourselves down, to peel away the armor, to rediscover what it is that is most pure and loving and faithful inside of each of us. It is not easy these days, but it couldn't have been easy for Abraham, and it certainly couldn't have been easy for Hannah Senesh. And so we go on the search, even in the darkness, to find our capacity to shine, to find our humanity once again, to try to rebuild our faith, and to be the light in the darkness. Etty Hillesum was a Dutch Jewish author who described both her religious awakening and the persecutions of the Jewish people in Amsterdam during the German occupation. In 1943, she was deported and eventually murdered in Auschwitz. She writes of her own search in the darkness. "Dear God, these are anxious times. Tonight, for the first time, I lay in the dark with burning eyes, as scene after scene of human suffering passed before me. But one thing is becoming increasingly clear to me, that you cannot help us, that we must help you to help ourselves. And that is all we can manage these days, and also all that really matters, that we safeguard that little piece of you, God, in ourselves, and perhaps in others as well. You cannot help us, but we must help you and defend your dwelling place inside us to the last." Etty Hillesum understands that in the midst of such darkness, actually, our divine image is profoundly at risk. And that's something we need to guard it and protect it, or else it will get blown away. In a powerful teaching about God's hiddenness in the book of Esther, Rabbi Yitzchak Hutner, in his book Pachad Yitzchak, tells the following parable. Two people are tasked with recognizing a face in the darkness. One lights a candle and closely examines the face to identify it. The other, without a candle, learns to discern people through subtle hints, through touch, through sound, through smell, and even, as I think many of us know in the dark, through intuition. We sense something. The first person achieves a clearer recognition by sight than the second can manage with mere hints. However, the second person develops a unique skill, the ability to recognize others in total darkness. Of course, the parable comes to teach us that the world is not lit up through God's grand miracles like the splitting of the sea, but that we need to train ourselves to faithfully move forward through a world shrouded in darkness, to overcome our paralysis and the hints, and to find the faces, divine and human, even in the absence of light, until dawn returns again. There have been people this past year, who have shown themselves to possess this spiritual gift of finding the hints, of searching, of seeing the light in the darkness. John Polin and Rachel Goldberg Polin channeled every fiber of their being to maintain hope and to leave no stone unturned to bring their son Hirsch home. Their resilience and nobility are unmatched. And amidst the devastation of Hirsch's execution, they were still looking for a path forward. They are, actually, still looking for a path forward amidst the darkness. At Hirsch's funeral, John said, "One of the most fitting posts I saw about Hirsch yesterday was the one that said, Yehi zichrono lamapacha. May his memory be for a revolution. He said, Hirsch, we failed you. You would have pushed harder for justice. You would have understood the other to bridge differences. You would have challenged more people to challenge their own thinking. And what you'd be pushing for now is to ensure that your death, the death of all the soldiers and of so many innocent civilians, are not mishav, are not in vain. For 330 days, Mom and I sought the proverbial stone that we could turn over to save you. Maybe, just maybe, your death is the stone, the fuel that would bring all the remaining 101 hostages home. Od lo avda tikvatenu. Through Hirsch's memory, through their faith, through their desire for returning of the remaining hostages and a different future, they choose to search for the light. Dr. Malila Hellner-Eshed, the one whose poem or prayer that I read at the beginning, is a professor of Jewish mysticism at Hebrew University and the Shalom Hartman Institute. She has been involved with the Sulcha Peace Project for over 20 years, a project established in the midst of the Second Intifada with the goal of creating eye-to-eye, heart-to-heart encounters between Palestinians and Israeli Jews. In the podcast, Can We Talk, from Jewish Women's Archives, she tells that 4 days after October the 7th, the Sulcha Project established a joint grief circle, which has been her most, she said, life-affirming experience all year. She says in the podcast, you know, there's this notion that in grief, every person should go back into their, kind of identity group. The experience of sitting together in a room, Israelis and Palestinians, knowing that outside is this raging storm of so much hatred, dehumanization, and racism, and that we manage somehow to keep that outside of the door was so strengthening. There are so many forces at this moment just wishing to keep us further apart. We're saying no. We will uphold our faith that we have all been created in the image of God and that we must return the faces to people on both sides of the conflict. With so much pain and horror unfolding around them, it would be natural for these Israelis and Palestinians affiliated with the Sulcha Peace Project to choose to grieve in their own corners. Instead, they take the risk to let their hearts be penetrated by the other's suffering and to dig up humanity amidst the rubble. And I can tell you that having served as your rabbi for over 25 years, I have witnessed people in the greatest of darkness finding gratitude, giving love, affirming faith, and this year was no different. I saw people who worked relentlessly and faithfully to bring home the hostages by attending rallies weekly or supporting Israelis most impacted by October 7th, and BJ members who stayed true to their commitments to coexistence and despite the tenor of the discourse continued to lift up the humanity of Palestinians and the suffering in Gaza. And on a more intimate level, I have seen our beloved President, Eileen Rosenthal, continue to work tirelessly for the community for the last year and a half, while she cared for her beloved husband, Lou Gieser, who was diagnosed with cancer in December of 2022. Lou and Eileen met and married at BJ. They raised their two daughters, Amelia and Kara, here. And in January, I had the privilege, right here, of officiating at Amelia's wedding to Nathan. It was Nathan's wedding, too. When Lou died in June, Eileen stood up at the funeral, and the first thing she said was how grateful she was to have found Lou and to have had that precious time with him. I can still see her walking up to the podium, standing there and affirming the goodness in the dark. And how so many of you, when I look out at the community who love Lou and love this family, showed up for that year and a half, for visits, for lunches, with food, with beautiful notes, and for Shmirah and Shiv'ah and all the days that have followed. In the darkest of times, with a world on fire, you all have given us signs of the nobility of humanity. We know life shatters us. Our faith is fractured, and we look out into the horizon not knowing what will be, wishing there would be a guide and a map, wishing we could trust in how it will all unfold. Faith is risky business. It is not about certainty. To believe in humanity after being crushed by the humanity in our world is a risk. Will we take it? To have faith that there is a promising future when we don't know what tomorrow will bring is a risk. Will we take it? To confess and admit we make mistakes and desire to make amends is a risk. Will we take it? To love, to change, it all requires risking something. Doing nothing, however, is a greater risk. The sun has set to begin this Shabbat of Yom Kippur. In ancient times, the high priest would make his way into the Holy of Holies with a rope tied around his ankle, risking his life for the atonement of the Jewish people, lest he die in the process and have to be pulled out by that rope. And now, for thousands of years, Jews and their family members have gathered to confess and bear our souls and our disappointments, our pains and our devastation, and beg for forgiveness. We will spend the next almost 25 hours stripping ourselves down to our essence through our tears and our prayers and our songs and our silences. As we search, may we discover that tucked away into the recesses of our souls is divine light. A legend even tells that after creating Adam and Chava in God's image, God grew concerned that they might misuse their divine nature rather than harness it for the good. So God said, I will hide their divinity deep within the core of their being. This will be the last place they'll think to look for it. It is our time to seek and find, and take the grand risk of living a life of faith, even in a dark world on fire. There is actually another version of the story of Abraham, and it goes like this. God said to Abram, Lech lecha me'artzecha, go forth from your land. To what may this be compared? To a man who was traveling from place to place when he saw a bira achat doleket, a palace full of light. Abraham saw a world of wonder and beauty, not a world on fire. May we merit the day when we will come home to that palace full of light, a world of love, amazement, dignity, justice, and peace. In the meantime, while we are in exile, may we take the risk to find those hints in the darkness, to follow the signs, to see the humanity around us, to see God in the world, and to build a faith that starts constructing that palace of light right here, today. It starts with us. Let us go forth.